August is hot, humid, sticky, but I got some solutions for you guys to get a couple extra bites with some really cool JDM lures. How's it going, guys? Travis here from Tackle Bros. And August is a month that I really like to start getting into the grass. The grass is usually pretty high at this point. The bass are kind of getting down there. The water temperature's up. So I generally slow down or speed up. You'll see there's a couple different variations in here to kind of get a couple extra and a couple bigger bites during this month. Now, we've been doing this sort of generally going up to this point, but I want to kind of switch it up to have more specific lures. So I'm going to talk about specific lures that I like to use this month, not so much techniques. That being said, you can kind of interpret this however you want. You know, if I'm showing you an Imo Kemushi and you guys like to throw a Yama Tanuki, or you like to throw any other Imo style bait, maybe a cover scat, something, you know, that heavier, dense plastic, feel free. It's probably going to work out the same. But I'm going to talk to you specifically about what we're throwing this month, because I think that's why we're doing this. So you guys can maybe try something a little bit new, try something a little bit different technique. That's kind of what fishing is all about, man. Just trying new stuff, catching bigger fish, and having a good time. So I'm gonna start right there with an Imo Kemushi. This is one of my favorite baits actually all through the summer months. I'll throw this into October sometimes. Basically an Imo Kemushi, and this is the 95 size specifically that I'm gonna talk to you about. Non-elastomer. I'm not a fan of elastomer for what we're gonna do with this guy. I have this on a 5/0 Infinity hook. That's my hook of choice for this guy. Ultra sticky, fits it absolutely perfectly. The Imo Kemushi has a nice little slot right here for the hook to sit in, so it's really hard to mess up the rigging. With this guy, I'm gonna rig it absolutely weightless. I'm gonna find those pockets in the grass and I'm gonna flip it in. Now for colors, they make a ton of really cool colors. This one right here is electric shad. Obviously the green pumpkin's gonna work. There's a bunch of other great ones. This style of bait has actually become very, very popular in both styles. So that thread going through the bait, obviously with the dice and everything else that everyone's come out with, that silicone skirt actually has a great quivering action as it falls through the water. And that's the key to this bait. And that's why, you know, we throw it weightless. This has a high salt content and it's gonna fall at a fair rate, but because you're not using a bullet weight and it's not just going down, you know, almost immediately to the bottom, it's gonna kind of quiver as it falls. So this is a really cool one, an effective one that you can kind of play cleanup behind guys and catch a couple fish that they might have missed. This is a great one from Geecrack for you guys to give a shot. Number two thing that I really enjoy throwing in the month of August, and again, a lot of the baits that we talk about, they carry over. Like, I mean, all the stuff that we were using in June and July, most of the stuff still works. I mean, if you're not throwing a wacky rig Senko, you're probably missing out on a lot of bites. Same with you smallmouth guys. Drop shot works year round, Ned rig works year round. So that doesn't exclude these from this list. These are just things that I kind of really key in on for this month. And this one's gonna be an underspin. So this is a 3.8 Keitech with a owner flashy swimmer. This is one of the OG combos that really, honestly, one of the first things I actually had success on when I started fishing. This is a weedless presentation, which I really like because I find that in August, I really gravitate towards grass. I mean, unless I'm smallmouth fishing, obviously, although we did find some smallmouth in the grass over the last couple weeks, which has been really cool, actual learning experience. I mean, we always caught them in the grass, but I feel like we're catching them better and better and better in the grass, which is kind of making this thing a little bit more useful. I love this combo. I can move it through grass. I can fish weed lines. It gets absolutely destroyed year round. Now, you can get these with a gold blade or a silver blade. Kind of pick your poison. I generally actually run the silver blade. I felt like I was getting a few more bites this week when I had switched over to the gold blade, so that's why this guy's on here. The Keitechs are ultra soft, which means you're gonna get a ton of action out of them, and it's just gonna feel a little bit more natural for the fish when they kind of latch on, which is gonna allow you to get that good hook set and make sure that you bring them into the boat. There is a ton of good options for ribbed paddle tail swim baits now. Every company seems to make them. My number one always go to is the Keitech. It's just been a staple forever up here. I throw white a ton. I kind of got this confidence. We were fishing a tournament on the Bay of Quinte a couple years ago, and the white just seemed to kind of light things up for me a bit. And ever since then, I've had crazy amount of confidence throwing white swim baits all over the place. So this is a really cool one. Now, If you're not maybe fishing right in the grass like I tend to do, like I'll throw this in some pretty thick stuff because it's pretty weedless. I mean, even with that blade, you have no exposed hook here, so you can get through a lot of stuff. But if you are throwing on the edges and you're worried about hookup ratio, you can go to something like a Raid Libero. This is the larger size, so this is going to be a 14 gram. This will also help you fish it deeper. So if your grass hasn't kind of grown up to the top, or you're fishing a little bit deeper grass, you can throw this guy. It'll get down there really, really nicely. It stays down and it still has that great little flash, just more of a bite-sized profile. It still does have a brush guard, which works fairly well. Obviously not as well as having that hook buried into the plastic, but this is a great one for fishing on the edges of the grass if you're not, fully committed to throwing in that junk. When I'm trying to upgrade my bite, maybe, I've caught, my dozen fish or so during the day, and I'm looking for that one big true bite, I will slow down, I'll seek out cover, or I'll seek out, big holes in the grass, and I will go to a flippin' jig. Now this one is paired up with a Raid Egu chunk. This has become one of my all-time favorite chunks, my all-time favorite jig trailers, to be honest with you. These claws move a ton of water. They have a ton of action in them because they're very heavy. This combo right here has caught me, a jig has caught me more 5-pound plus largemouth than any other bait combined, probably. The jig just gets bit, and it gets bit by big ones. That's why you see a lot of guys always having a jig on their boat. This is usually what goes into the cover first to try to lure that larger bass. The profile on this is just a bit chunkier, a bit bigger. That skirt material is going to puff out, and it can usually get the big girls to bite. So if you're not throwing a jig this month, if you're not throwing a jig, most of the time, if you're in and around grass, you're crazy. But definitely try out this Egu chunk. It comes in 3 different sizes. It comes in a 3-inch, a 4-inch, and a 3.5-inch. You can really pair it up pretty good. This one that I'm holding is the 3.5-inch size, so you can see it's not that intimidating. This is a mini jig, so it looks big in the package. So this is it totally. I actually rip off this part of the body, so I just twist this guy off, and then I kind of thread the fat part here up onto the hook. A lot of you guys hang it. You can do that as well, but I like to thread it up on the hook. It just seems to sit up a little bit nicer, and it has that great profile on the jig itself. So check this one out for the month of August. Check this one out year round. This thing just works. The next one is going to be on a frog. So these are the kind of 2 styles that I go with. I'm kind of interchangeable with this guy, but the Honker frog is not replaceable to me. So I will throw a standard frog most of the time, and then if I find an area where there's lots of little holes in the top of the grass, I will go to a Honker frog. Now, the Honker frog is unique. It's gonna have these 2 metal bladed feet. What that's gonna do is, on top of the water, while you're bringing it into those little holes that I'm talking about, it's gonna sit up there, it's gonna clink around, it's gonna have a little bit of flash. It has sort of like a bluegill click to it. I think that's the best way to describe it. Yeah, like a bluegill click to it. I'll shake this guy in those little holes for quite a bit of time. Tons and tons of extra bites just by having those metal legs. The other frog, it's standard stuff, guys. If you've ever worked a frog, you're just gonna kind of bring it over those mats, bring it in those, cane edges, and just kind of work it. If you want to fish pads, you can fish pads. But this guy is a secret weapon. If you're not using something that has that little bit of extra drawing power like this, it's a no-brainer. So I watched Hideki fish this guy, and that's kind of what really keyed me in on when to use it. He would bring it over those mats, he'd get into that little hole, and he would just kind of shake it in place, and they would go crazy for it. So this is a really cool frog. If you don't have this in your arsenal, one I highly recommend. If you look online at a Honker frog, there's tons of really respected frog fishermen that rave about this thing. Again, it's one of our favorite in the shop, so check this guy out. And then finally, something that I love doing is throwing a bladed jig. Now, I've already had this discussion many times. I'll throw a bladed jig all year long, doesn't matter. But sometimes I notice that a lot of guys are throwing bladed jigs, and the pressure from them is just kind of getting to the fish. And that's when I go down to a swim jig. So this is the Evergreen Grass Ripper. Now the benefits of the Grass Ripper, obviously amazing hook. The head shape comes through cover amazingly. They have a thick brush guard. The main benefit though is if you're a jackhammer guy and you like throwing jackhammers, they make all the same colors in the Grass Ripper, which is really cool. You can kind of, if you have confidence, you know, in like Brett's Bluegill or something like that, you can go over to the Grass Ripper, grab a Brett's Bluegill, and just kind of have a little bit of a different look. When I go to the swim jig, my trailer's completely changed. If you're throwing a bladed jig, you're generally gonna throwing a Zako, a DoLive stick, something that does not have a boot tail. When I go to a swim jig, I like a boot tail, and in specific, I like the DoLive Shad. Not sure why, they always seem to pair up perfectly with it. It's not too bulky, it's not too small, it has a great little kick to it. It's nice and soft, but it's not, you know, rip apart if a bluegill's biting at it for whatever reason. This is just a deadly, deadly combo all the time, in grass, out of grass, wherever you're fishing. This is just an automatic have on the boat is a swim jig with some sort of paddle tail swim bait. So check that one out. And we're gonna link everything in the description, so it's a lot easier for you guys to kind of navigate through the website if you're looking for any of these specific products. All that being said, the stuff that we talked about in July is gonna work. If you like throwing other topwaters, they're gonna work. This is just a good time to kind of navigate to that grass a little bit more, to get a couple extra bites, get a couple bigger bites in the month of August, because it's hot, it's humid. It's a long day out there if you're spending 8 hours in the water. Yeah, so nothing overly out of the normal when you're fishing in August, but some of these baits are probably a little bit different than you used to. You know, we're throwing the Egu chunk. A lot of guys are gonna throw the Zoom chunk. A lot of guys are gonna throw, you know, a Spro Bronzeye. We're gonna throw the Honker frog. So just a couple little differences. You know, Imo Kemushi, you can go to, I mean, the depths is obviously a great option, but a lot of guys nowadays are throwing the Yamatanuki, something a little bit different. A few little changes you can make to upsize your bite or get a couple extra in the month of August. And yeah, enjoy it, go have fun, catch a bunch of fish, and we'll see you guys later.